called 1huddle is looking to shake up the monotony of job training by gamifying the experience. The company says that turning the training process into a more fun experience leads to easier and more comprehensive adoption of workplace policies. Joining us now is the CEO of 1huddle.
So we have games that can be played on mobile, where you play anywhere, anytime. We also have, if you ever played Cards Against Humanity, like a classroom game, yes. Again, no HR violations in our game, but it's a fun way to put everybody in the room at the same time so that when you talk about negotiation training, soft skills are an important topic with the future of work. So you log on to the app, and instead of a module, or instead of a test or an assessment, you play a game. So upon logging in, you pick a game from a library of whatever's available for that week. So one of our clients is Madison Square Garden. So every week, they have a certain number of games up on the platform that you can play, and at the end of every week, they reward the top performer. So they have a game, they have a 1,000-question game on all the A to Z information you need to know about the garden. They have a game on the team. They have a game on F&B options. So we can gamify any type of training content. Is it like
Good morning and good evening. Today we're talking to Roger from 1huddle. This conversation is brought to you by Stacks Ventures. If you're an investor, please message Roger on Twitter for a demo day invite. And you can find Roger on Twitter at rogerb.btc. Turn anything your team needs to know into deceptively simple, highly effective mobile games proven to level up workers quickly. All of your training in one game on your phone. How's it going today, Roger?
It's going awesome, man. Good to chat.
Tell us more about how 1huddle started.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that, and excited to cover all these topics. So quick background and story. So we've been around for about 6 years in the Web2 space. The founder and I actually went through 500 startups, which I know, many of the tech folks and some of the investors know of pretty well. We spent about 9 months out there doing the whole startup, sleeping on the couch thing back in like 2014, 2015. Moved the company back here in Newark, New Jersey. So we launched 1huddle to transform the way companies looked at technology when it came to engaging, training, communicating, and exciting and prepping their people. So historically speaking, when you get hired at a company, whether it's Web2 or Web3, a lot of it's kind of death by PowerPoint, right? It's kind of shadow the number one employee. It's here's a bunch of manuals or modules that you have to read or watch or go through. So as advanced as companies are nowadays and how a lot of technology and innovations is happening in the workforce, the technologies and methods of hiring, training, and exciting your employees and preparing them, again, whether it's in Web2 or Web3, hasn't really evolved. So we did this about 6 years ago with the mindset of really shifting the way that workers looked at work, how they got excited about work, how they prepared for organizations. Fast forward to today, we've had a tremendous amount of success and traction. We're a market leader in future of work, training, and education in the Web2 space. We work with about 100 different brands today globally, ranging from Madison Square Garden to Lowe's Hotels to Amazon with Audible, the U.S. Air Force, UEFA, for some of those soccer international fans. We're in about 29 different verticals today. We have over 400,000 users globally that every day are waking up playing 1huddle trivia games to either learn how to do their job, learn about a new skill, or just culturally play games to keep them or uplift them right in their day-to-day. And these games, we've across the past 6 years, there's been over 60 million games played, and obviously that number grows every day across 4 continents. We're global, we're all over the place. And these games are being played in about 25 different languages. So the story, over the past 6 years has kind of evolved because 6 years ago, people thought we were crazy saying, we're going to take anything you need to know and turn it into a quick burst trivia game, especially on their phone. Now, fast forward through, the past 6 years and even the past 2 with what's happened with, COVID and technology and innovation, the future of work is completely different. And I think crypto and blockchain has done a lot from a technology perspective with that. But even outside of just the Web3 world, the Web2 space, like whether it be hybrid work, remote work, disruption that's happened because of pandemics and service sector environments, unemployment, and there's all types of chaos happening today in the world. And it's really kind of shifted companies by saying they have to get with the trend and get with the times. And meet their employees where they're at and create an environment where culturally people are excited to show up and work for you. And I think that, for us, doesn't matter if you're talking about, an archaic Web2 organization or a new DAO that just started in Web3, like your people got to be excited about your mission, vision, your core values. They got to know how to do their job. And you could be the most innovative company on the planet. If you hire someone and you force them to go through, hour-long videos or boring papers about learning how to do their job, you're kind of, the analogy I keep using is it's like pulling a Tesla with horses, right? It's like, doesn't matter how innovative and sharp you are, if you're using like boring old school legacy systems, like you're kind of defeating the whole purpose of innovation. So that's kind of like in a nutshell, just a quick little history lesson on 1huddle. I've been with the team since inception. We went from me and the founder to now 50 full-time employees. We've gone through a couple of different rounds of fundraising as well. So we've been blessed to be successful up into this date. And yeah, we're super excited about the opportunity right now in Web3. Yeah, absolutely. So when we were entirely bootstrapped until going through 500 startups and getting an invite, like Zero Off mentioned, it's really just like YC and 500 back in the day, then Techstars and a few other accelerators popped up. Back then it was myself, it was the founder, Sam Caiucci, who's still the CEO today. And at the time we had a very small engineering group that was almost working as like an agency with us. And that was led by our current CTO today, Rakesh Raju. So it was really the three of us building this idea. And at the time, the really innovative thing, as crazy as this might sound in today's conversation, was taking learning and training and not only gamifying it, but putting it on the mobile phone where everyone did everything via desktop and laptop. So we evolved that product and the team from 3 people back at 500 startups through a seed round, a Series A round, and a few other kind of friends and family rounds to now we have an entire engineering team of close to 25 to 30 full-time 1huddle engineers led by our CTO. We have a marketing department and division. We have a team led on the customer success side by Jared Center. I lead everything on the sales strategic front, and also carving out this kind of transition from Web2 to Web3. So we have this team that has a tremendous amount of experience, not only scaling startups from consumer, also from B2B, but from SaaS and enterprise and across the way. So we have a lot of experience scaling wild and wacky ideas in the kind of the Web2 space. And I think that's what kind of propelled and excited a lot of the folks in the Stacks ecosystem and in the Web3 space to take a look at us and say, we can either take long shots at newly founded organizations that haven't kind of proven themselves or done it before, or we can kind of bet on the horse, so to speak, has a bunch of races under their belt, so to speak, right? And has shown success like us. And I think we've learned a lot over the past 6 years, scaling a startup from bootstrap to fundraising and everything else. And I know many of you probably listen to this that are startup world or founder world. It's a roller coaster, right? And you learn a heck of a lot along the way. And I think those learnings help you kind of in those day-to-day grinds or the day-to-day kind of hand-to-hand combat fights that you have to as a startup when you're growing, and frankly, carving out a brand new idea that never been done before.
Tell us about some of the solutions so you mentioned that you guys open source, well, not open source, but you opened up the recruiting module, and then you also have onboarding, training, compliance. Can you just tell us about some of those key features in the platform, and then let us know how is the transition from Web2 to Web3? Just how do you think about it in general, and are there specific products that you want to transition, or is it, hey, we know that this is another platform shift in society happening, and we need to develop some type of products or community around this. We don't know what it's going to be exactly yet, but we know we're going to build for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to your first part of the question. So like a little bit more of the features and functionality and things that are built into the platform, even when it comes to the hiring version. So the way 1huddle is being used today in the Web2 space is companies use us to onboard and on-ramp, new employees. So they play games on, about the brand, about the role they're going to be doing in that organization, skills, things like that. They also use us ongoing as like a communication and like an engagement tool. So I got hired at, Fossil Retail Group a year ago. I'm still playing games today on culture, on, professional development topics, things like that. And then the third bucket is more so like skill specific. So like leadership development, diversity, equity, inclusion, financial literacy, things like that. So it becomes like specific to the brand and then gets more and more broad in terms of regular use case. When it came to that innovation that we did with the hiring and what led us to like the consumer model, those games that were more and more general, like have the ability to be like skill development. Like we did a massive campaign and it's ongoing right now with Audible, who's one of our largest investors, and they're also a corporate partner of ours. So we have the ability to gamify many of their books through that partnership. So one of the things that we're doing as another open campaign tied to that kind of job campaign that we did is anyone in the city of Newark is going to get access to 1huddle for free through this partnership with Audible and have an Audible membership tied to it. And we're going to be doing a huge digital literacy and financial literacy campaign for millions of residents in Newark. And it's going to be like our first kind of targeted model to, again, if you are employed today or you're unemployed or you're, maybe some of the inner city youth, or maybe you're some of the older generation, doesn't matter. You have the ability to download 1huddle and develop a new skill, right? It could be something as plain as something around, learning about computer engineering, computer science. Maybe it's you want to get into culinary. It doesn't matter for us. So that's kind of like a little bit more the features and functionality. And again, all of it's done through trivia games, and they're tied to AI. They're built off of neuroscience. So it's really powerful, but deceptively simple, where you're 18 years old or 80 years old, you could play 1huddle. And it takes 90 seconds, right, to complete each game. So they're quick burst. And there's a lot of data on the back end that proves you learn faster, a lot more fun. You remember this information much longer. So you become a much more educated and engaged user. Transitioning from Web2 to Web3 and kind of what we saw and what led us there, again, like we're innovative and we're disruptive. And us being in the space, we know, and we're constantly kind of a little bit ahead of the curve on like trends. So we saw like the hybrid remote environment before COVID, right? We saw the ability for like mobile and accessibility when it comes to communicating with a remote workforce way before companies thought about that. We saw a lot of the future of work trends when it came to like creating a culture and environment where your employees are excited to show up every day, right? You see a lot of companies right now in Web2 struggling with retaining their employees and even like hiring new staff because frankly, their culture sucks, right? Like they don't create a fun environment, right? So when we looked at like blockchain, and this is where like, it almost became me spearheading this inside, I became kind of fascinated with with blockchain. And of course, like I think most people, right, like Bitcoin and Ethereum first, 5 or 6 years ago. And when I first started learning about like blockchain, I'm not a hyper technical person. So I more so got enthralled around the idea of like power to the people and nobody being able to control or have a say over it, right? In a positive way, where I kind of looked at it as our tool, right? We're like, hey, corporate, like ivory tower, like anyone and everyone, doesn't matter what their role or demographic, what they look like, where they came from, everyone should have access to 1huddle. I saw it as like, holy shit, like anyone can access Bitcoin, anyone can buy it, anyone can build their own wealth. There's nobody that can control it or tell them how to use it or when to spend it or when to trade it. So I got like fascinated about the technology. And again, me being like a first generation, so my parents from Portugal, I'm first generation everything, right? First person to graduate high school, go to college. Like I kind of had to figure out life a lot, through the success and sacrifice of my parents when they came here. I looked at it as like, holy shit, this also is like a really unique way for people to break through barriers of like generational, like, muck, right? If you have generations of like in poor environments or like, in mid-level like wealth and you're just like in poverty or impoverished or things like that, like what better way than like blockchain and crypto? Like you could build wealth and you can get lucky or you can get excited about projects. So, I'd probably say about 3 years ago, I got really bullish into it. I got, became like a passive investor and got excited about a lot of different projects. And then a close friend of mine who's also a client of 1huddle, Brian Guadagno, who I know is heavily involved in the Stacks ecosystem, came to me one day, and this is really where it clicked and the light bulb went off, and it became like passion outside of 1huddle. So like now me bringing this into 1huddle was city coins. So I actually learned about stacks through city coins because Brian and a few individuals said, hey, I think you should join this. I think it was like a Twitter space or whatnot. And, generally speaking, for those of you who either know or don't know city coins, it's like civic tokenomics, right? They're trying to disrupt the way that cities can leverage crypto to do good for those residents and do good for like civic entities, whether it's like, Patrick talks about this a lot. Patrick Stanley talks about like, wealth, happiness, health, right? Like the ecosystem environment, like digital literacy, opportunity, being able to break down those barriers. So when I heard about that, I instantly tied that back to 1huddle and I said, hey, we have a social impact division where we have like cities and nonprofits that we donate 1huddle to. And they use 1huddle for like workforce development, reentry programs, like all types of things tied to government. So it was the first time that I saw the bridge between like blockchain and like, corporate and Web2 and like government. And I just took a flyer and I started joining some of these Twitter spaces and learning more about city coins. Fast forward, that relationship developed, an awesome relationship with lots of folks leading that with like Andre and Patrick and Brian and some other folks. Got invited into Discord, started learning more and more about stacks. And those relationships kind of parlayed into each other where, the more I talked in that space about what we do, the more I realized like this is where the big problem that we're trying to solve moving from Web2 to Web3 is like the number one barrier, the number one challenge to go from everyone that knows about crypto and uses crypto today is like the massive early adopter, right? How do we go from 3% of the world to even 50% of the world owning crypto? And it's education, right? There's so much misinformation out there today when it comes to blockchain and crypto technology. Every time you turn on the news, like, I hate the news, but a majority of the news and press, right? It's really negative. They're always bringing up like concerns and they sell fear. But even once you get convinced and you can see through all that, and you're excited about crypto and blockchain and Web3. I mean, it is like an ocean to navigate, right? And I even speak for myself. It's like whenever I learn about a new project, it's like, okay, join these 5 Discord groups, join these 3 Twitter spaces, like go on these white papers, like go on TikTok, like go on Reddit. It's like, it's just all over the place, right? So even when you're like excited, you're like, okay, cool. Like I convinced my mom to listen to me about crypto. And then if your mom's like, okay, cool, what do I do now? And it's like, well, like, what am I going to send my mom a white paper and have her read tokenomics to learn about stacks? It's like, that's not going to happen, right? So what I quickly started realizing was, again, going back to my analogy early, it's like crypto is this, shiny Tesla or fill in the blank innovative technology, right? It's like the iPhone being tied to a cord in your living room, or the Tesla being pulled by a horse and buggy, or this like, this massive plane and you're just kind of driving it on the ground. It's like, I didn't understand. I was like, there's so much innovation happening, but when it comes to like training and educating people on like what it is and where to start and how it's good for them and where to use it. And this really started with city coins. It's like, how do I get the mayor of Miami and their entire staff to understand what the hell city coins is? It was just eye-opening to me, right? It was like, it's just so complex. So I look at that as a massive opportunity to say, we have this platform in Web2 that people play games on every day to learn new skills or better skills or skill up or apply at new jobs and learn about new things. And the whole premise behind 1huddle and our success in Web2 is taking complex and sometimes deep and boring things and making them fun in an effective way to learn. And I said, wouldn't it be awesome if we could take anything and everything you need to know about Web3, gamify it, and then provide the incentive of you learning more about it as crypto. So somebody introduced the term like play to earn like a bunch of times to me. I was like, that's really cool, but like, wouldn't it be cool to like learn to earn, right? And I know that now this term is kind of getting thrown out a lot and it's probably before us even, but I think where I'm really excited and, we got introduced to the Stacks Ventures team and Trevor and a few other folks, and they got really excited about our success and our traction in Web2 is like, we don't have to build this thing from scratch, right? We're kind of ripping our success in this technology outside of Web2 that's already scalable, that already has enterprise-wide use. And now we just have to start like kind of like piecemealing together certain kind of additions to it to make it Web3. And I think the 3 tracks that to share with you, the first is this true learn to earn model, where again, in a perfect world, we'll be the go-to platform to learn about anything tied to crypto. So as foundational as like, what is Web3 and blockchain, all the way down to like, hey, play this game to learn all about like stacks and the hero wallet, right? Like getting really nitty gritty or really broad. And the incentive behind that is not only are you learning, but as you level up, as you compete against others, as you play these games, these projects and tokens can sponsor these prizes. So you'll earn stacks the more you learn about it. You can earn, cross, and we're thinking about this being, cross-chain in the future as well, to be very broad. The second is, again, we have a really unique opportunity as a successful Web2 market leader to develop this skill to earn model. Imagine taking stacks and it being the primary reward mechanism for all of our Web2 clients. So if you're Tao Group or Lowe's Hotels or any of these brands that use 1huddle and you have thousands of employees playing games, what we know over the past 6 years is the number one challenge these brands have is consistent rewards. What better way to learn how to become a bartender at Tao Group than as you play those games, you earn stacks along the way. And then it becomes a vehicle for us to also educate them financial literacy perspective about Web3, right? They might not care about crypto, but guess what? If they're earning stacks, then they might be curious to start learning about it. And then the third is kind of going back to like mission vision for us. And I know that we talked about this on prior conversations, is like death to like certificates, right? In the workforce, credentialing is like really old school. It's typically owned and it's monopolized. Talk about like the opposite of decentralization is like a certificate, right? If you work at a restaurant and you get certified in like a specific category for that role, like that lives with your employer, not with you. And all of your skills like live on LinkedIn. But guess what? 2/3 of the global population works in service sectors and they don't use LinkedIn. They don't have resumes, right? They just have like experience and skills. So imagine you can accumulate skills, learn all through playing these games on 1huddle. And the trophy on 1huddle is an NFT that you own. You own your skills, you own your experience, it lives with you, it becomes one of one on chain. Nobody can take that from you. And you have the ability to lever that as you kind of progress and level up into the workforce. And that can be done right now also with like, the Web3 space, right? So many people right now in the Stacks community are talking about how to get people over from like ETH and Solana as engineers and builders onto Stacks. And we have like Clarity Universe and other things, but just be cool to have like an NFT to showcase like, hey, like these are all my skills. These are all the games I played. So those are the 3 tracks. For us, it's a really easy, again, almost like a midway point between Web 2 and Web 3 for us is teaching the everyday people today about what Citicoins is. So in Miami, they have a tremendous amount of momentum right now with, Mayor Suarez doing a lot of stuff with Citicoins in terms of like using the funds for good. They did like a big rental relief program, but I think they're like 1 or 2 kind of dominoes away from it being kind of a waterfall effect and Citicoins being, fully activated for residents. And I think we are in a position, and this is what we've been talking to Citicoins team on, is becoming that kind of standardized on-ramp platform to educate both the residents and then any of the community that needs to understand it, but then also like the employees of the city of Miami, right? It's, if you're going to be activating and leveraging the funds, you better know what the heck you're doing. And I think Miami is a different use case because they're super innovative. And I think a lot of the folks that are tied to the community there are awesome. But, if imagine snap of the fingers in 2 weeks, Miami goes out and says, hey, every resident's going to get access and airdropped X Citicoins or, a Bitcoin dividend or whatnot. Like, if you don't know what the hell they're talking about, like, would you raise your hand and do it? Is that like a missed out on an opportunity? So for us, if we could build a pack of games tied to educating people on just like the basics of Citicoins, basics of blockchain, basics of Web3, security around not getting scammed and properly setting up your wallets and things like that. That's how we're looking at Citicoins. And then again, going back to the easy plug, leveraging Citicoins as a reward mechanism too. So there's an entire kind of discussion happening right now of like gamifying certain things that need to be done on 1huddle, and then you earn more Citicoins, and that being like an on-ramp for residents. I think there's like a couple different use cases there, but I'm really excited about that one because I think short term, a lot of things need to be figured out, but long term, I mean, think about that. If that could be the standard token for the cities of the future, that's going to be pretty badass. And, I don't know if you all know Patrick Stanley, but he's brilliant. And, he's helping lead the charge. I think it's going to be a pretty amazing project to come soon. It's been awesome. I mean, Trevor, Kyle, Andrea, and the entire team have been fantastic. I think it's been awesome to not only kind of learn from a lot of their expertise and their experience, because they've been very hands-on, but them providing access to all the different mentors that they brought on, both like task cohorts and just folks in the ecosystem. We've been Sam and I and the team have been a part of a couple of accelerators in just the Web2 space, right? So we've seen the good and the bad. And I think for them, leading a fully remote global accelerator is hard, right? I mean, it's like time zones and like keeping people connected and together, but they've done an awesome job. The resources available, not to mention, and again, this goes hand in hand with Stacks Ventures and the accelerator, but like just the community in general for Stacks has been super supportive. Some of the successful companies like Alex and Arcadico and Hero, leveraging their expertise, their time, the Stacks Foundation with their grant program. So, shout out to Will and Dio and Brittany and the rest of the team there that are kind of leading that charge. I think the excitement that I have for Stacks, and again, I know about a lot of different tokens and projects, and I'm invested in some of them, and we've had conversations with them, but I think Stacks really does care about building a super strong foundation and community of builders of projects and things like that. So, definitely if you're thinking about building on anything, I think Stacks is providing a huge ability and a handout to be able to help both through the foundation and through the accelerator program. By the way, they have tracks for just being regular Stacks and for city coins. So we're kind of playing both sides there. When it comes to like advice, I mean, again, I think for us, like blockchain is here. It's not going anywhere. I think some people still fight it today, and we joke about like mainstream and news, and like it's not going anywhere. And the biggest companies on the planet, whether it's publicly or behind the scenes, they know it. They're planning for it. They're bringing on people that are tied to it. So for us, we looked at it. And we were again early on this trend too. But if you're a Web2 company and you want to stay innovative and you want to stay ahead of the curve, and you don't want to be that company that like in 2000 was the first time you started using the internet, right? And it's like this, you took a decade to accept what the email was or internet was. Like nobody wants to be Blockbuster. Everybody wants to be Netflix. And I think the Web3 space is that for companies like us. I think the only the advice that I would give is, one, like be open to change. Like there's a lot of things that work differently in Web3 when it comes to like decentralization, when it comes to DAOs, right? There's all types of things you got to like know and learn, but be open to. I think the second thing is like find a problem. And I think the beauty about Web3 is, finding a brand new problem to solve in the regular world of Web2 is kind of hard, right? Like every idea is kind of already out there, and it's really tough to compete with some of the big dogs. But, if you're just like we talk about it with some of our clients, if you're like a mom and pop shop, you're a restaurant, and you want to stand out from the competition, like what cooler way than just to like do something with Web3? Maybe just accept crypto as a token, right? So I think like it doesn't just need to be from a technology perspective. Like I think there's so much opportunity in Web3 right now. And then lastly, an accelerator isn't just about a check that cut to you. So speaking specifically in terms of like advice from a Web2 company looking to go into the accelerator, leverage the heck out of their network. These people are like literally vested in and invested in the brand and you to be successful, but like they're not going to like run your company for you, right? So going back to what I said earlier, it's like you could be the most innovative company or person on the planet. If you don't execute or take or do, you're not going to be successful. So I think if you enter in and you get the opportunity to come in through a grant or through the accelerator, there's a wealth of opportunity, a wealth of knowledge out there. Like make sure you take advantage of it and take it, because people want to help, but not everyone's going to chase after you to do so.
Thanks so much, Roger.